Got it all.
Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, everybody. Cowboy here, 8:30 a.m. EST on Tuesday, June the 10th. Tomorrow we have the CPI. And yeah, expect the unexpected. It's in the title. And I went ahead and got some quant data this morning. And even the quants don't really know. Usually they can kind of take a look at the data and have an idea of what might happen. The quant data was leaning towards a little bit of a cool print. So what all does that mean? What that means is that if the CPI comes out a little cooler than expected, then usually, at least in the current environment, the assumption is that we might see a rate cut in the near future, and that means the dollar would be perceived to be getting weaker, and then like stocks and other things will go up. And well, stocks and other things have been going up anyway, right? But we have to remember that we do live a bit in the upside down, and it's kind of tough to say what's going to happen. There are theories out there that holding the rates steady is what is helping the United States stay strong in the bigger picture. And, if that theory is true, then we might not see a rate cut, or at least we might not. Yeah. First of all, let's back up. CPI and the associated numbers, I think, are oftentimes fudged, like probably always. And I know that's a very cynical view, but the reality is that very large players make a lot and lose a lot of money based on these prints. And if you think for one moment that the CPI print is going to be like an honest number, it's going to be, oh, yeah, no, that's really what it is. Yeah, no, there might be some truth to it. I'm not saying it's 100% BS, but I think there might be a little fudgery. And I think in the current environment, the fudgery might be thick. If we were to go with the quant data, I'd say either like an expected CPI print. So let me jump over to the data right now. Wednesday, tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. We have an expected core CPI at 0.3%. We have, that's month over month, expected CPI at 0.2% month over month, and year over year, 2.5%. Now, the year over year might actually have a better chance of being cool. The month over month, I think, is either going to be expected or just below. And if it's, as it always can be, if it's way lower than expected, you're going to see a pretty big move in the charts. And if it's just a little bit lower than expected, then I would expect to see like kind of money re-enter the game, meaning that, okay, the uncertainty for CPI is no longer there and all the traders come back in, and then we can take advantage of the volatility. Because I can tell you right now, at least from the chart perspective, the volatility is trash. It's really bad. This is a 30-minute time frame of the USD JPY. At least in the FX market, volatility is pretty bad. It's real choppy, which is kind of to be expected. So if I go to the 3-hour chart, which is going to give us a view of depending on how you look at it, the past like week or so, going back to Friday, so the past half a week. Of course, Saturday and Sunday are not part of that. In the forex market, that's closed. Same would be with the stock and futures market. We'll look at those too. But you see that price has really been ranging USD JPY between 144.38 and 145.08. Now, in the NASDAQ, in that same time period, it's also a bit of ranging price action, right? So price really just bouncing back and forth, attempting to break above recent highs of 21,937, right? So let's take a quick look at Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin itself has done well. It's on its own thing. It did break down from this head and shoulders, didn't quite hit that first target that we talked about. This was a private deal for the private Algo Factory members that got to see that. So sure, there was money to be made on this move down, but at the same time, it didn't quite hit targets. So the best I would have gotten had I been trading Bitcoin, which I rarely trade anymore, I probably would have just been stopped out at entry, right? Once price went well into profit, I may have taken profit, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point here is that it bounced up and it bounced up nicely, and it's reapproaching its all-time high. And the question is whether or not that all-time high will be breached. Now, if the CPI print tomorrow is very cool, like way cooler than expected, then of course we might be looking at, okay, inflation is not what it was, and we might be able to expect a cut because markets are starting to inflate. But I mean, looking at the markets right now, if you look going back on, like, say, the NASDAQ, going back to, April, it's just been really strong despite all of the pressure that we saw from the whole, tariff business earlier in the year in February. We saw the big move down. We see it come right back up pretty much to within slapping distance of the all-time highs. So the markets are headed up, right? What's oil doing? Oil is a decent measure of inflation. So let's take a look at WTI, West Texas crude, or U.S. crude, if you will. Now, oil did take a move down. That doesn't look like inflation to me. That looks like deflation. And that was actually bound to happen. You see that I drew a bearish pattern there quite some time ago. If I were to go to a much higher time frame, you will see that I did talk about price heading down. And whenever you see this pattern, this kind of triangle, I had a target down at $58 and a second target down at 49. Now, of course, if oil goes down towards 50, you start to see some pretty big cracks in the world economy. This is being held up right now above 60, and that's fine. But oil does not look like an inflationary scenario. When you see inflation, oil tends to be going up, but we have been seeing some fundamental shifts. We've been hearing, like, OPEC talking about, like, hitting production really hard. And in the whole scheme of things, Trump and his, you could call him, opponents, they all want oil price to be cheap right now. So, I think that there are pressures downward on oil. And when you see oil going down, it tends to mean you're not going to see inflationary pressures. Now, there is a bit of a backwards look on that because of the way that oil and the dollar operate. But that tends to have to do with the amount of oil that's being purchased rather than the price of oil itself. So if you have a lot more oil being purchased using dollars, then a lower price of oil gets mitigated because you're purchasing more oil. And that's a big, big, complicated mess of a picture to have to explain here. But I can tell you that the pressures don't look terribly inflationary right there, right? So we're looking at some historical charts to see, are we in an inflationary environment? If we look at gold, gold is indicating dollar weakness over time. We've had massive moves in gold going back. 2025, it went from 2,500 to 3,500, and now gold is remaining pretty bullish. This all-time high, we're just seeing gold range below this all-time high, and I do expect that to continue. Expect gold to go sideways for a bit, but gold will surprise you, especially if we see a lot of geopolitical issues. We do have V the Gorilla here with us right now. V, how you doing, sir? V, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Good morning, man. How are you?
Doing good. Just taking a look. We got the CPI coming out tomorrow, and I was just kind of telling the audience here that the world doesn't look terribly inflationary right now. I know we got all this kind of scare tactics when it came to, the tariffs are going to cause inflation. And, I don't see prices really going up anywhere.
Right.
I see prices going down. I see gas is staying cheap. I see oil is staying cheap. I see things remaining relatively stable as opposed to inflationary. So will the CPI come out as a hot print, a cool print? The quant data is leaning towards a slightly cool print, but it's actually really difficult right now to predict what's going to happen with the CPI. And that's why the title of the show is Expect the Unexpected. So before we head over to the private live lab, do you care to weigh in on that particular issue?
I agree with everything that you said. And, people are wondering, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now. There's a lot of intensity. Chaos seems to be everywhere. And the question is, why is the market so quiet, so smooth? It kind of verifies for us the fact that it's sell in May and go away, right? We're seeing the range locking. I'm just surprised they range locked at this level. We could have a pullback depending on what they want.
Are you talking about, sorry, V, to interrupt you. Are you talking about like the stock market, or what are you looking at?
Equities. Yeah, totally.
I'll roll over to the NASDAQ and the charts so we can see what you're talking about here.
You see?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're just bouncing around, and people are wondering where's a sort of chaotic ricochet, some sort of chaotic move downwards or an increase in volatility like never before. And we're not seeing that. It's all quiet on the front, so to speak. I mean, what's Bitcoin at right now? Like 108, 106, still bouncing around there, like
Yeah,
109.
it's actually popped up. Bitcoin's 109.5. It
Yeah,
did have a technical move up over the weekend.
yeah,
It's a question of whether or not it's going to breach the all-time high, or if it's just trying to reclaim that high and head back down. And we'll cover that in the private live
yeah,
lab.
exactly.
You know,
But yeah, right now it's my sentiments are it's just there's a lull, and it's there's two ways to look at it. It's either sell in May or go away, or this is the calm before the storm. So that's the question. Those are the two questions we're all kind of looking at. Is this the calm before the storm? Is there something around the corner we don't know, or is this literally just going to range lock itself like this until the fall? So
yeah, I think, I think that there's going to be a lot less volatility. There is right now. I mean, markets are trash right now to trade. I got up early to trade them, and we're seeing a pre CPI like nothing. And so the summertime is when your large players, I just think it goes around them taking vacations. And the summer's always been slow, so the summer continues to be slow. I think outside of any kind of like fundamental, shifts and all the look, this madness in LA. I know we're going to more probably cover this in the private live lab, so I don't want to get too far into it. But that will affect markets in a way, or I should say it's like a symptom of the markets. But I could tell you it's all paid for by NGOs. If the money wasn't flowing from the billionaires like George Soros or his dumbass son or whoever, that none of this shit would be going on. It's all being paid for. And so with that being the case, like you think this is an organic movement, any of these protests that have gone on in the US and all the George Floyd shit, that's all been paid for. And we know it, and it's on Craigslist ads like, hey, come protest for, whatever money per day. So that's all, that's all kayfabe. Unfortunately, people are being paid to be violent, but the markets don't seem to be reflecting that, do they?
yeah,
You know,
no.
so
Yeah.
either way, with that being said, the only thing that's interesting right now is silver. And V, I know we're not going to talk about it here. We're going to actually probably talk about that first in the private live lab, because I know we got a lot of metal bugs in there. So for now, V, can you, while I bait everybody watching, if you want to learn more about what we know about metals, because V, you're a kind of a beast in metals. You do some pretty big deals around the world with precious metals, bigger than most people I know. So if you want to know about that, if you want that inside info, right? Like, I don't mean inside as in illegal inside. I mean just somebody who's in the game coming in to tell us what's happening, because like
Seeing
high
the
level people,
sentiment and the trends that the institutions are seeing is what we
yeah,
offer.
like literally institutional data, come over to algofactory.tech. In fact, if you just go here into the description where it says get your free algo, if you click that link, you'll get a free algo like immediately. You just put in your email and like a real or fake name, we don't care. You'll also get on a mailing list that'll tell you how to find us. You can get that kind of data. So do that. V the Gorilla, can you please get us over to
Absolutely,
the private
guys. Guys, follow us over to the live lab. Don't sit there wondering if this is for you. It's an amazing time. If you're worried about AI taking your job, here's the deal. Here's a job that you can do. Here's something you can do for yourself and your family. This is the ultimate kind of fishing, the kind of fishing that I love, where you can eke some profits day in and day out that are compounded for you and for your family. So join us at the live lab. Cowboy, take it away.